Are you tired of living on autopilot? Are you ready to start embracing your one precious life? Welcome to the Wake Up to Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Colleen Odegaard. Hi there, and welcome to the Wake Up to Your Life podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I sure do appreciate it. All right, I'm starting today's show with a question for you. Here's the question. During painful times of your life, the worst things that you've been through, job loss or the loss of a loved one, a divorce, a rebellious child, infertility, things like that. Have well-intended people ever said to you, everything happens for a reason, or God doesn't give you anything you can't handle? You've probably heard that at some point. Did that make you want to punch the other person in the face, or is that just me? Me no like those sentences. I don't like those words. Those are not helpful things to say to people in pain. I want to offer some better alternatives, some ways that we can be more compassionate and helpful and really show up in love for people around us. It has been 2 years since an incredibly traumatic event rocked my family. And because this is the 2-year anniversary, it's top of mind for me. And that's what's leading me and compelling me to talk about this right now. I'm feeling very reflective. But on June 17th, 2018, my son, Anthony, nearly died. He was literally minutes away from death. He was 16 years old at the time. And I will tell you the story as quickly as I can, how he ended up there, because I want to get to the backside of it and tell you what I learned from this experience. But Anthony was playing in a rugby tournament, and that is a brutal sport. I don't know if you know much about rugby, but think football with no pads, contact sport, people running into you. Anthony made a tackle, and that tackle is what caused the injury. He sustained this life-threatening injury. It was a skull fracture, and that caused a brain bleed that went undetected for many hours. By the time he was seen by emergency room doctors, he was unconscious. And then after that, it was like something that you see in the movies. I remember being in the emergency room and a team of doctors and nurses swarmed around him and they were working feverishly on him. They looked stressed out. And I asked one doctor, what's wrong? Is he going to be okay? And the doctor said, we're working on it. And I knew it was bad. And it was also surreal. And at this point, I had called one of my best friends, Nicole. She came to the emergency room. Mariano called one of his best friends, Jeff. He came to the emergency room, and they were there asking doctors questions and getting information for us because we were not fit to do that. We were out of our minds. And I remember them saying, we have to get the helicopter here. We have to airlift him to the Levine Children's Hospital in Uptown Charlotte, where they need to perform emergency surgery, emergency brain surgery. And they were concerned he wouldn't survive an ambulance ride, that they needed to get a helicopter there. Thank God they were able to get the chopper to the hospital. And when they wheeled him out to get him onto the helicopter, he just looked so bad. I'll never forget the image. He was intubated. He had a tube down in his mouth, down his throat, and his head had been shaved, and he was on the stretcher, and he looked like he was in a body bag. He was in this, it looked like a body bag. I don't know what else you call it. And it was zipped about halfway up to his stomach. And I just thought, I'm not going to make it. If he doesn't make it, I'm not going to make it. I mean, we were broken. We were so broken. And we get to the hospital in Uptown Charlotte. My husband flies on the helicopter with Anthony. They only allow one of us to go in the helicopter. And Jeff and Nicole drove me to the hospital. And again, I don't remember a lot of this, but apparently I had been wailing and rolling around on the floor in the hospital, in the emergency room. My husband was hysterical. I mean, it was a scene. We get to the hospital in Uptown, and at this point, more of our friends are showing up. our pastor, our worship leader, his wife come to the hospital. And it felt like a really long time. I don't even know how long it was, but eventually the surgeon comes out and tells us that Anthony made it through and that we could go back and see him and that he expected him. He had every reason to believe that he would make a full recovery. So this has a good ending, everybody, don't worry, but he had every reason to believe that. We weren't sure. We had to wait and see if he would have to go to rehab. We weren't sure. Will he have to learn how to feed himself again or walk or talk? But none of those things happened. He was okay. But when we went back to see him, he just looked so bad. He had 42 staples in his head. It was bloody and swollen. And we spent a few days in the ICU. And like I said, they released us and he went home and it was believed he would make a full recovery. So why do I tell you the story? I tell you the story because of what I learned about love and God's love and how we are the hands and feet of that, and what it is to care for people and nurture for people in their greatest times of need and how life-changing that can be. So I want to share with you what was helpful for me and for my family during that painful time. And I'll tell you, it wasn't the people who said everything happens for a reason or God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. It wasn't that. Prior to Anthony's accident, I would have described myself as a nice, loving person. But really, if I'm honest, I think that maybe I was nice when it was convenient for me to be nice. I'll bring you dinner if it works out for me to do that, or I'll sit and listen to your problem if I'm not rushed with something else to do. But people showed up for us in the biggest ways. I mean, they dropped everything. These are busy people with children and jobs and pets and full lives, and they dropped everything to be with us for days. We need to remember that we should be inconvenienced for people. We should be inconvenienced for people. We should go out of our way for people, not just when it's easy for us to do so or just when it works for your schedule. And when I say that, I'm not talking about becoming a doormat or a martyr. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it should be at the expense of caring for yourself. Hopefully, you know what I mean about the difference between that. But to really look at our behaviors and are we acting in love? That sometimes we should be inconvenienced for people. When someone you know or love is in pain, just be there for them. There's a beautiful word I learned in a book. The book I love, I'll put it in the show notes. It's called More Beautiful Than Before, How Pain and Suffering Transforms Us. And it's written by Rabbi Stephen Leder. And the word is hineni. Hineni. That word means, here I am. Hineni, here I am. Just showing up for people and listening to them, it means so much. And that is how healing takes place. There's simple words that mean so much. This is loving. It is helpful and healing to know that people are there for you and care about you more than you ever could have imagined. It made a difference for us. The things that people did for us after Anthony's accident, we were floored. We couldn't believe it. We received 400, it might even be more than that, but about 400 handwritten cards and notes. We have kept every single one of them. And some of these are from strangers who just wrote messages. We were getting prayers from a church, I think in Maryland. It was unbelievable, and certain things stand out, certain things that people did that were very helpful and thoughtful. Again, some from good friends and some from just acquaintances. I remember one guy who our kids go to school together. His son is now graduated, but he just dropped off on our doorstep, and I didn't even know he really knew us. But he dropped off salsa and chips and some other snacks with a card that said, "I figure you've got a lot of people coming in and out of your house right now. I thought you might like some snacks to give them." My friend Lynn, who is an angel on earth, she brought gift cards for hats for Anthony and a pillow for him to lean his head back on, like a good back neck supportive pillow because he needed to keep his head upright. Nicole noticed I hadn't been eating, and she would just put food in front of me and say, hey, it's there if you want it. You know, there were just so many things. Jen filled my refrigerator with fresh food, and Kimberly cleaned up the vomit that was in Anthony's room after his accident so that I wouldn't have to come home and face those things. You know, acquaintances dropped off dinner and gift cards. A group of friends had my house cleaned for a few weeks. Bobby Sisk, he was my co-anchor. He's a very dear friend. He had our lawn taken care of for a few weeks in a row. Such a huge help. I could go on and on and on about the things that people did and the prayers and the texts. You know, I couldn't pray because I was angry with God. I was angry with God. You know, I was like, you know, I know Christianity is not an insurance plan against bad things happening. We will all go through trials and tribulations. But I was mad at God because I thought Anthony's life was better before this. I really did. And all of our lives were better before this is what I thought. And I was mad at God. I was like, I don't like the way you do business, God. Where can I write a complaint? Can I file it with the Better Business Bureau? I don't like the way you do business. I was pissed off. But people prayed for me when I couldn't. They prayed for my family when we couldn't, and it was helpful. So all of this has a point. We've all had those moments where we don't know what to say to somebody who is suffering. But I would argue that it's not about coming up with the exact right words to say. It's not about cheering them up. We're so uncomfortable with other people's discomfort. We want them to feel okay. And I know it comes from a good place, but we have to feel our pain and our grief. It's not about saying the exact right words or cheering them up. It's just about showing up. Here I am, Hineni, just show up. The rest will take care of itself. And if you're wondering whether you should even say something to someone who's hurting, like if you're hesitant because you think, oh, I know, her husband left her and I don't want to say anything that will upset her. I would argue, yes, you should say something because I think people need for their pain to be acknowledged. Not that you pepper them with weird questions or interrogate them, but just to say, hey, I know that you're going through something and I want you to know I care. I see you and I care. I have talked to people over the years who've endured the worst kinds of suffering. I've interviewed them, and something that I know is that they all want to talk about it. They want to talk about people they've lost. They want to talk about their greatest heartbreaks. And again, at the very least, just to say to somebody, I know you're going through a hard time. I care and I'm sorry. You just can't go wrong with that. It's not helpful to say things like everything happens for a reason or God doesn't give us anything we can't handle. That rarely brings any comfort to the person who is in pain or suffering. And we're always given things we can't handle. It's why I need God. It's why we need other people. And I really felt God's presence in the way that people showed up for us. Every kind gesture felt like love. Also, I'm going to say this, and I think you might not like this one, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I got this from the book, the Stephen Leader book that I mentioned. To say to somebody, let me know if there's anything I can do, even when you mean it, and I believe that you mean it. I have said this many, many, many times. Let me know if there's anything I can do. The person in pain very likely will not take you up on that offer. So in the book, he suggests anticipating the needs of people in pain and meeting those needs. Food is the obvious one. We're good about bringing food, and that's wonderful. I mentioned that somebody took care of our lawn and had our house cleaned. Also very helpful things. Offer to take care of someone's children. Walk their dog. Again, just a handwritten note means so much. We often think, I can't do anything. But even that small gesture is very meaningful. As I mentioned, 2 years later, we still have all those cards that were sent to us. I have a friend who battled cancer for years, and she said it was exhausting when well-intentioned people kept asking, what do you want for dinner? And when people just showed up with, here's chicken marsala, like I said, anticipating the needs of people in pain and meeting them, she said it was such a load off of her. It was so helpful. So just keep that in mind the next time someone you know or care about is going through a difficult time. And I know a lot of times it's because people don't know what to do or what to say, but I think that slowing down, breathing, being present with someone, holding their hand, listening to them, praying with them, give them a smoothie, things like that. Very helpful. And even if people aren't going through big traumatic moments, if they just seem like they're a little down, they don't seem like themselves, a very sincere, how are you doing? Are you okay? It's mindfulness of other people. It is a way of being and a way of living. We need to be people who care. Do we really value people and prioritize people? This is courageous and brave work to enter these moments in people's lives. I know it can be scary because it brings up vulnerability in yourself that you may do something wrong, but be courageous to go into the space. I would encourage you to do that. And a lot of times we make sort of throwaway comments because we're just uncomfortable with other people's discomfort and we want it to be over very quickly. And sometimes our inability to acknowledge it, it's because we don't want to be vulnerable. Brene Brown, who I love so much, who, by the way, her podcast is so good. I would not even be offended if you shut me off right now to go listen to Brene Brown. Because she's that good. But she says that to be empathic requires great vulnerability. And as a culture, we've lost our tolerance for vulnerability. Let's do a better job of listening to each other and holding space for people who are struggling, a space that is free of judgment and agenda. So did this happen to my son for a reason? I don't think so. I don't think it was for a reason. But did beautiful things come from it? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much. Keep it here for some bonus content, a special guest. All right, I'm glad you stay tuned for the after the show. I have a very special guest. Meet my 18-year-old son, Anthony, the one I just told you all about. Hi, son.
Hello, Mom.
You're my first guest.
Yes, that's very special. The best first guest ever of all time.
He's very humble, as you can tell. Very humble. Okay, I want to ask you just very quickly, what's one of the biggest lessons you learned from that traumatic event that happened 2 years ago?
Well, yeah, it was obviously awesome to see all the love that we got, our family that we got from the incident, see some positives from a negative. But, up until that point in my life, my life has revolved around football and rugby and mostly sports. And it's been smooth sailing. I haven't really had any serious traumatic event like that. And I've never really had a bad injury like that. So then up until that point, I realized how to be saved from that accident would make me feel very grateful for my life. And I'm grateful that God was able to spare me that day. And but I realized how, things are not always going to go according to plan. And obviously I'm still mad about it. And I was mad about it then.
Because we should tell people that your plan was to play football or rugby in college. Exactly. That's what you wanted to do.
That's what I wanted to do. And then because of that injury, to find out that I'm now unable to do that, it was very hard to, digest and reason with that. But, I've realized that that was my plan. Clearly God has a different one for me. So, fully have put my trust in him. And I think that's what the greatest thing that I've learned from it, put my trust in him.
Yeah, that sometimes things just don't go according to the way we think that they should. And we all know that, right? We all have experiences with that. But I'm sorry for that for you. But but you've got so much, you do have so much to be grateful for. Like your wonderful mother.
Yeah, like my mom. She's just awesome.
I got your money for you
brother.
For saying that, and your brother and your dad. Yes. And your dog. So Anthony and I have a request for all of you who are listening. One, we want to talk about the Levine Children's Hospital. Anthony, you know that the Levine Children's Hospital saved your life.
They saved my life.
They literally saved his life. So if you are able, I know times are tight right now, but if you were able to make a donation to the Levine Children's Hospital, even if it is just $5, we would appreciate that. I put a link to that in the show notes here on the podcast. So you can just click on the link that I put in the show notes, make that donation. The other thing, Anthony thought, and I thought would be a nice idea, is just to go out and do an act of kindness for someone else, right?
Yes. Makes a big difference in someone's life. You never know what they're going through, or if you do know what they're going through, it's always nice to contribute and help them out.
And one thing I know, everybody's going through something. Everybody you see walking around, that jerk who cut you off in traffic, he's going through something too. Everybody is. So just an act of kindness to somebody in your sphere today. If you could do that in honor of this story. And again, what my family experienced 2 years ago, we are touched by it. And so thank you so much. Anthony, anything else you want to say? Because I don't know when I'm bringing you back on this show again. This is your big moment.
This is my big moment.
It's your big moment.
No.
Nothing. You want to rap? You want to sing? You want to...
I could spill a little bit. Stop it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Wake Up to Your Life podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, take a moment to subscribe for free on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're there, would you do me a favor and give this show a rating and leave a review? Doing so helps other people to find this show. You can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Colleen_Odegaard. That's at Colleen_ODEGAARD. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs, check out my website, wakeuptoyourlife.net. That's it for now. Talk to you soon.